Hey, what's up everybody? Wes here. Thanks for tuning in. Today's video is going to go out to the Peloton community as I'm going to be showing you step by step how to make your very own wall mounted shoe rack with plenty of room for additional accessories, whether that be workout gear or towels. Now you've probably seen this exact same design or something very similar to it on Etsy, Instagram, or Pinterest. I actually just took a photo offline of the same design and went to Lowe's and got the materials for it. Again, it's right around $40, so super affordable. If you order one already made, it's going to cost you around $150 or more. So it's definitely a simple DIY that we can do in one afternoon. So without further ado, we'll jump right in and show you how we got it done.
So as you can see, I've got my outdoor workstation all set up, and first things first, we'll go over the tools that you're going to need for this job. So ideally, you're going to need a miter saw or another method to make straight cuts. We're going to leave this set at 0 degrees, a speed square to mark your straight cuts, a tape measure, and then a drill to drill your holes. And here's a quick look at the hooks that we'll be using on this project. You can use any style hook you like. You're going to likely need 4 hooks, that way you'll have room for 2 pairs of shoes or 1 pair of shoes and any additional accessories that you may have. But again, any style will work. For this project, these are Gatehouse, and here's a close-up look at them with the item numbers. Other than some basic tools and hardware, what you're going to need are these 3 boards. They are 1x6x8s, and they can be picked up at Lowe's or Home Depot. Even though they're 1x6, they are technically 5.5 inches wide. You're also going to want to have a cold beverage on hand. A cold beverage on hand for this project. So now what we'll do is take our first board and lay it out on the saw, and get your tape measure, and we're going to mark it right at 28 inches even. Now that we've got our 2 hash marks set at 28 inches, we'll want to pull out the speed square and slide it over so we can make a straight line for our 28-inch cut on the miter saw. Now that we have our board marked, we want to go ahead and get the line in line with our cutting saw. And keep in mind, this project is a simple DIY. These cuts aren't super precise, but you want to be as precise as you can. The blade does have some thickness here, so make sure you cut to the right of your line. Once you're sure that you have it lined up and you're not going to take out your line, go ahead and make your final cut. Easy enough. So counting this piece we just cut, we're going to need 2 more. The best part, instead of measuring 28 inches with the ruler and doing the quick square, is just to lay your first piece out on the existing board, mark it out, and then we'll go ahead and cut out 2 more. After you've got those pieces cut, what we're going to do is pull our tape measure back out, and we're going to need 2 boards cut at 26.5 inches, and this is going to complete the back of our shoe rack. And then once again, like all of our cuts, use your quick square, line it up with your hash marks, make your line, and then we'll move on to our cut. Now that we have all of the back pieces set up, here are the 3 28-inch pieces that we cut out initially. We'll go ahead and get those laid out for reference. And then here they are staggered with the other 2 cuts that we just made at 26.5 inches. And you can do some different layouts with these. You don't have to have it this way. You can also offset it or cut the grooves deeper if you prefer. It's totally up to you on this part. But for me, I like the initial design that we had laid out here. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and put the shoes on here for reference. That way I can kind of get a gauge of where I want to put the different shelves. And with that being said, we'll go ahead and move forward. So now we're going to start cutting out the shelves. I'll go ahead and get a tape measure on here and measure all the way across. It looks like we're right at 27 5/8, but you'll want to double check your measurements as well, just to make sure they're the same as mine. So at this point, I'll assume that you already know how to cut the boards. This is my 27-inch 5/8 piece, and this is going to provide the top part of our shoe rack. Alright, next on the agenda is to cut the 2 sides for the side towel compartment. And I'll kind of be eyeballing this for right now. I want to go between the toes of the shoes, but not quite down as far as the indentations here. So the first thing is to get the tape measure in place. Careful not to scoot anything around because it's just laying. And it looks like right here we're going to wind up being 19 inches and a quarter. So that's going to be our next cut. 2 boards at 19 inches and a quarter. Alright, so we're coming along great. We've got the 2 side pieces for the towel. Now we just need to put a bottom on it. The boards that we're working with, even though they're 1x6s, technically they're only 5.5 inches wide. But double check your measurements just to make sure, but theoretically the bottom is just going to need to be 5.5 inches, and we'll get that closed up. Alright, so now that we got the bottom piece, we're moving right along and we're going to get started on this top shelf. So we're going to lay the tape measure here and get a measurement, and it looks like we're falling right at 22 inches and 1/8. So that's going to be our next cut. But make sure when you're cutting that you're not angling your tape measure. You're going to get the wrong measurement, whether it's too far down or too far up. Make sure it's straight with the board that you're measuring, just as a side note. Okay, so we've got our next board in place. That's our 22 inches and 1/8. Again, double check your measurements. The next part we're going to do is get the end for the shelf and then the middle divider on our last two boards. This part's going to be somewhat up to you. You're going to want to make sure you measure. We're going to go inside these two boards, but basically you can move these shelves up or down, make them as big or small as you want, depending on how big your shoes are. And just for reference, mine wound up being 6 inches and 1/4, 6.25 inches. Now we've got everything laid out and in place. It's looking great, and we're going to make one more mark on this that we're going to use in a future step, and then we'll move on to staining. Okay, so next what you're going to want to do is make sure you remove all the boards except for your top and your side piece. Put your square back in there to make sure that everything is squared up and laying how it should be. And then we're going to take the top board here and we're going to put a dark pencil mark on each side of the board to show exactly where it's going to be attached from the back once we get everything ready to start installing. Now that we've got all of our pieces cut out and ready to go, what we're going to want to do next is notice that we've got some splinters on our boards. You want to take a little bit of sandpaper or a sanding block and do just like we do with our cold drink and just knock the edges off a little bit and get everything ready for staining. Anytime you stain, you want to make sure you shake up your stain, get everything started up from the bottom, and then get some rubber gloves on, and then we're going to be ready to move on to the next step, which is staining our sanded boards. Basically what we're going to do is just pop the top on this, use a white rag or any kind of a sponge that you may have. It's easier to wipe it on than it is to paint it on, but if you have a brush handy, definitely more than welcome to do that. There's no problem with that whatsoever. It's better not to apply any kind of a stain in direct sunlight. Luckily right now it's mid-afternoon, so I can put this on my back deck no problem. Make sure you have a lot, proper ventilation. Again, this is perfect for me right now since we're outside avoiding the hot sun. We're in the fresh air, and we'll go ahead and get this thing stained up. To make sure you want to do the sides and the fronts. Basically we're going to stain each piece and then stack it up on its side, and then it's going to air dry. This type of stain really should only take about 20 minutes, and then we'll be ready to move on to the next step, which will be assembly. Once the boards are dry, take the back pieces that you have marked, and we're going to do 2 pilot holes in between the lines that are marked on each of these boards. And what that's going to allow us to do is to lay the boards out and then attach the top shelf. That way it holds them all together, and then that'll basically allow us to work everything else from there. But again, get your 2 pilot holes. No real spacing requirement, just make them in between the lines and spaced apart an inch or so. Now what I have here to attach the boards are some 2-inch drywall screws. You can find these anywhere in any size. You can go a little smaller, but try not to go above 2 inches. You could also use a air nail gun. This will make this super simple, but again, we're going to use drywall screws for this video. So your first step is going to be to start 2 screws in the back of your boards. I didn't stain the back of mine, as you can see here, because it's going to go right up against the wall. But basically put 2 of the drywall screws in those pilot holes that you drilled earlier. And those 2 lines, what you're going to do is use that to line it up on the top board of your shelf, the one that we used earlier that we traced these lines with. And this is going to be the trickiest part, but put it right up to the edge and then screw these screws in. It may be necessary for you to have someone to hold these boards while you screw these 2 in, but once you get them in and keep everything flush on the side, this is going to be the foundation for the rest of our project. And now we'll just move right down the line. We're just going to stagger the boards short to long, short to long. You're going to do the same 2 pilot screws that we just did in the previous step, and now it's going to be just as simple as lining up the top of the boards and then drilling those 2 screws into the top part of the shelf, and we'll work our way right down the line. Very simple. So once we have all of the pieces attached to the top part of the shelf, we'll get everything flipped over, and then we're going to go ahead and move forward. The next step is to take the 2 boards that we cut at 19 inches and 1/4 for our towel rack, lay them in place, and basically what we're going to do now is take our drill with a pilot screw, and we're going to drill one pilot hole in the top. That way we can get a screw in and get it attached. As you can see, we've got the screw in place. That's going to attach those to the top part of the shelf here, and then we're going to move forward. The next thing I did was flip the project over. Here's the two shelves we're working with, and we're going to drill pilot holes up and down this board, get our screws started, and then we're going to drill in from the back onto the towel rack shelves to get it secured. Now that we have the towel compartment sides attached, we'll flip the project back over once more. And then we'll take our 5.5-inch piece that we cut earlier, line it up with the two sides. We're going to mark out 4 pilot holes here, get our screws started, and then we'll go ahead and drive all 4 of the screws in, and that's going to securely attach the bottom part. Now that we have that in place, we're going to want to take our 2 dividers that are going to make for our top shelf. I'll put the side piece on, and then the middle part, you can put it right in the middle, or you can move it side to side. This part's totally up to you, wherever you want to put it. And then we're going to take our drill bit here and drill a pilot hole. You'll just need to kind of eyeball it right in the top of each of these, again, so that we're not splitting the wood, and then we'll get a screw in and get these 2 parts attached. The last board, we're just going to go ahead and put it right into place. We're going to drill 4 pilot holes and then drill it right into the bottom of our shelf dividers, and that's going to secure this board to the frame. Now we've got a solid rack together, and it's time to put the hooks in place. And now for the fun part, you just take your hardware and line them up in the middle of each of the boards that we have here. You can measure them, but definitely safe to eyeball. Take a pencil and then mark a hole where you're going to be pre-drilling. That way we don't break the boards. And then you'll want to take your drill out, drill your pilot holes for your hardware, and then as soon as you get that completed, you'll go ahead and just put them back in place and get everything attached. Work your way down the line, and then you're going to be ready to go. Alright, so here's our finished product. Everything is in place, the hardware is installed. It's just got to finish drying a little bit, and then we'll get everything installed inside. Until then, we'll put our shoes on. Everything seems to fit, and really what you're going to do is just mount this right into the stud of your wall, and then everything's going to be super secure. It's never going to fall. I just did 2 screws. It's going to be a perfect way to get your shoes up off the floor. If you're anything like us, we're always tripping on them, so this is going to be a great addition to our Peloton corner. So if you have any questions about the construction or assembly of this project, definitely feel free to comment below. I'll definitely do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. I make a lot of videos like this, so feel free to subscribe, click like if you got some enjoyment or any kind of information out of this video, and we will see you next time. Take care.